Hi everybody, this is Matt. Thanks for watching and welcome back. How do you organize your tools? How do you keep everything straight in a shop? That is the question that many of you have happened to ask. Well, here we go. Different view of the shop. You've never seen my tool chest before, but it comes at a perfect time because for about the last 4 to 6 weeks, I've been going at a breakneck pace trying to get things prepared prior to winter. That involved working on cars, getting things straightened out there, rebuilding carburetors for making sure that the snowblower worked properly, stuff like that. It's been busy, and I tend to keep a lot of tools actually inside my house, not out in the garage, and that's just simply because I've had things stolen before. And when you have things stolen, you don't really like it. So you try to keep things in a little bit more secure area, although we know there's no place that's perfectly secure. So I have a mess, and I don't like the way that everything looks here. So I'm just going to work and talk at the same time and explain the methods and stuff, the reasoning that I have, but just simply about what to do. And hopefully this helps, especially to some of you younger folks out there. Now, some of you have already noticed that I have gloves on, and you might say, why do you need gloves if you're putting tools away and you're cleaning and stuff like that? Well, a good reason, because when I've been a mechanic in a shop before, years ago, I was working around industrial strength solvents and cleaning materials. Now, this happened to be before there were a lot of regulations, a lot of safety regulations. So we would be around parts washers with no protection on your hands whatsoever. We would be around all kinds of oils, synthetic oils, different compounds, some of which have proven to be carcinogenic. They can cause cancer. Well, theory has it that, that type of industrial chemical exposure could have possibly contributed to me developing kidney cancer. And so because of that, I now wear gloves, and frankly, it just helps to protect the skin and makes cleanup a lot easier. So there you have it. And when it comes to working around chemicals, just be careful, be aware of what is in your environment, because like I said, in the past we really didn't think about it. Could have been a lot bigger deal. Okay, one thing that I wanted to share with you before we get going here is I had a couple of wrenches that were rusty. Now, this has been with me since oh my goodness. This wrench probably dates back to the 1970s. It is an 11/16 Craftsman wrench, and you can tell that I worked in a shop because I don't know if you can see this or not, but I took an electric engraver and engraved the initials to my first name here. This had surface rust on it for being stored. This also had surface rust on it. Now you'll notice where here you can really see the rust on this side, but not on this side. This is a mat trick that I use to keep tools clean, and I'll do a video on it sometime. Basically, this had heavy rust on it, and a lot of people would just throw a tool away that does. For me, what I do is I take white vinegar, and in this example, just to show kind of a before and after, I put white vinegar in a glass. And so here you can see the difference in finish where we have rust here and it's clean here. Left it in the glass for just a few hours and wiped it down, and voila, no more rust. Little mat trick, thought I would share it with you. But I have to continue on with these. All right, when it comes to cleaning, I'm even going to do a little bit of cleaning on my toolbox. This tool chest I've had since the 1980s, and It was regularly available at one of the big box stores. I think I probably paid around 230 bucks for it at the time. It had another chest here in the middle, which has since disappeared. But this chest has worked just fine. And I would have tool salesmen come along and they would try to sell me the latest and greatest tool chest. Thing is, this continues to work, and I never saw any reason to pay thousands of dollars for something when this worked. Now, this has accumulated a little bit of dust, and what I've done is I've just simply cut up an old white t-shirt, and I'm just going to do a little bit of maintenance on this, wipe it down. Nothing super fancy here, just trying to keep it clean, because if we keep it clean, we eliminate the possibility of formation of rust. And as you can see already, this looks a little bit on the grungy side. Now, unfortunately, last year I had a heart attack, and so a lot of my things that I would normally do, maintenance-wise and cleaning-wise, got completely pushed off. So I'm just going to go drawer to drawer here, wipe down the faces, and if you notice, I'm just kind of, spraying this little cleaning rag here. Get some spider webs off of that. And we'll just go down through here. And here's a little bit of rust. Not too bad after, 30 years? And we can stop that rust, but that'll be a topic for another video. So basically, I'm just wiping this. Trying to do it as quickly as possible because I don't want to bore the daylights out of you. But I do see things that need some attention. And then we'll talk about some of the tools that I use, why I use them, why I choose them. There is always a reason. I just don't go out and buy tools to buy tools. And finish down this side. Pardon me here. And yes, that was my knees popping. Great thing about using like one of these old white t-shirts is at the very end of its life, it still is usable for something. So there you have that. And I'll go ahead, throw that away. All right, you see some things up here. These, I like these. These are Bondus. They're made here in the United States. These are solid. Now, this has the Allen type of ball on it, which means that you can come into something at an angle, but man, can I torque these things. I like buying products that are made here in the United States, and Bondus just so happens to be one of those companies. Another one that I like, the original channel locks. They do the job and they do it very well. I enjoy Snap-on tools. These are from an original set back in, purchased in the mid-80s, still working today. I have yet to actually need one of these things replaced. But we can't always afford everything that we want because the price on tools has gone through the roof. And you just have to be kind of careful with what you purchase. On the other hand, there's things in a shop that can bring you a great deal of pleasure and it doesn't cost much money. This little thing right here, it is a magnetic ashtray. I can just throw something in there. It works. I think this cost me like $3. So something like that, $3 works great. Okay, organization wise, generally I kind of follow to where I keep my measuring tools up top here. So here is my digital mics, and I'll just go ahead, put them in here. I will also have like feeler gauges, and this is old school feeler gauges. Now, for those of you that don't know what a feeler gauge is, it's something that you can use for gapping spark plugs or seeing, the distance between different items. This is probably 40 years old. It's an old Blue Point set, but it still works. So why not use them? So those get there. My screw starter, which is extremely helpful and has been extremely helpful in the past, is always up there. Magnet on this side, and then you can basically put a screw onto the notch there. This little thing locks into position, and it essentially grabs the screw, and then you can go ahead and you can feed it down into a recessed area, and the screw doesn't fall off. So I really like that. It's a good investment if you can find one. Again, this thing, oh my goodness, how old is this? It's old enough that everything's wore off and I can't read it, so. Okay, other measuring tools. How many of you know what this is? Folding rule. So you tend to use this in carpentry work an awful lot. And as a kid, I was always fascinated by this. My dad had it, uncles had them. They were constantly using these, and they would put it in their bib overalls in their pocket. So this, little bitty crowbar. Something else that has proven real handy over the years. This is essentially kind of a homemade file. This is a round file pressed into a little wooden body right here. This has been extremely handy and extremely useful for me over the years. So because of its utilitarian factor, it has a place right there. Up in here I've got a few odds and ends, like different types of folding Allen sets, metric, SAE. Here I've got a couple of odds and ends. Here's where I tend to put channel locks, pliers, and this thingamajig. Now, who can guess what this is and how useful it can be? Have you ever seen anything like this before? Again, this is probably about half a century old. This was given to me, and this has made my life so much easier when it comes to doing things. This is a wire stripper. So if you want to strip a wire, you simply feed it in here. The moment that I go ahead and depress these, this pawl holds the wire, and then this grabs the insulation and then strips it. Very, very precise. And when you're working a lot, that makes a big difference. Oh, what else do we have here? You have retaining clips. Use the right tool. Don't just try to jimmy it out. But essentially, this is where my screwdrivers go. So before I put screwdrivers away, I look at them real quick. I can see a little bit of rust trying to develop on this one. And what I will do is first, I will go ahead and try to clean it up a little bit. Now, later I might use my, that's good, drop test. Use my vinegar cleaning method. I prefer that over using a wire brush. And let's see. Yep, there's a little bit of rust coming off on that. A little bit of oxidation. So I take care of these just as much as anything else, because the better that you treat something like this, it will treat you equally as well. Now the next thing that I do is I will go ahead and just put a little bit of oil on there. And I'm going to use something else for that. Get a small piece here. I know I've got one. And I'll use the oil just to kind of help preserve it until I can get to it and do what I want to for a final cleanup on it. So light coat of oil, very light film, and then that goes into the toolbox. Let's see, big old channel lock. That's still in good shape. Pair of side cutters. These are in good shape as well. Man, I can already tell that I've had these things for decades. Again, these happen to be Snap-ons. And I just love their hand tools. Kind of hard to afford anymore though. Not that it was easy to afford back then. But when you make your living off of tools, you don't like to have to go and get replacements all the time. So, do I have anything else? Nope. Automotive scanner. Very handy, especially with today's cars, which have a lot of computers on them. So that gets used more than it should, and it goes right there. All right, crescent wrench is in good shape. Have a separate drawer for those. Screwdrivers always go in there. That's just fine, doesn't need anything. The one that I dropped, just fine. We accumulate lots and lots of screwdrivers throughout the years. Probably my most utilitarian one is this, again, Snap-on set. It has removable bits, common bits. I have stored in the handle. This thing has traveled with me all kinds of places. And so it's constantly in use. Another favorite screwdriver is this long, thin blade. This is actually a Matco that I got, again, decades ago. That gets used all the time. This one's all right. Okay, what else we got here? We'll pay attention to these wrenches after a bit. Okay, here, something different. I have some cleaning patches. Not quite sure why they ended up there, but they did. And in this drawer, I've got a bunch of miscellaneous stuff. So for example, I've done a lot of low voltage type of wiring, and these are essentially like networking tools. And so this happens to be a punch down tool. This is a stripper for network cable. So this goes in here. Things that are a little bit larger, awkward, end up in there. So here I have just a small torque wrench. My bigger one that looks like Gigantor is out in the garage. Here is one of the bearing pullers that I have, and you're like, bearing pullers? What in the world is a bearing puller? Well, this you put around a bearing, and you essentially can remove a bearing or a pulley by the looks of this little guy here, which I know it looks like one of those things that you would find in a arcade, where it goes down and grabs something for you. This here is where I keep all of my crescent wrenches. I will get to these later. I've got to completely reorganize this, and obviously you don't have the time to watch me go through all of that. Also, good hammers. I like having different types of hammers. This is one of my favorites. This is an Estwing, made in America again. You know, works great. So that is there. My socket wrenches and everything go into this drawer down here. Oddball parts. Like, anybody can guess what this is? Come on, take a guess. No, it's not a bell. Does sound like it though, doesn't it? That is actually to remove a oil filter. So anyway, I keep them all organized here. I keep them organized according to the size that they are. And my bench is getting cleaner, and I already like the looks of this. Down here, I generally have drill bits. Good old Milwaukee drill. Corded, I know that everybody loves cordless. I still like corded tools because I don't want to have to be buying batteries all the time, because batteries are very, very expensive for that sort of thing. Okay, need to clean the vise. The vise is getting kind of ugly. Now, I already know that there's going to be somebody watching this. They'll be like, okay, Matt, what's the favorite vise that you've ever owned, worked with, or whatever? Favorite? An old school Wilton vise. W-I-L-T-O-N. Wilton. It was an 8-inch vise. I used that in the shop all the time. Best vise, hands down, that I have ever worked with. We had different types of chucks available for the vise. So if we started to, wear out the faces, we could go ahead and replace them like you can on this. But we also had ones that had different metals, like brass and copper. That way you could work with some things without, and get them tight in the vise without destroying them. That's why today, if I'm working with something that I don't want marred, I'll use these pieces here that basically are kind of a plastic, and that way they attach through a magnet. But my favorite vise is the Wilton. Wish I still had it available, but they are expensive. The originals are expensive. And when I say expensive, we're talking anymore like $800 for the type of vise that I had. And I know there's folks out there that'd be like, why would somebody ever want to pay that kind of money for a vise? Well, you're paying money for its functionality and what you're getting. If anybody out there that's a car mechanic, you know what I'm saying. If you work with a tool, that's how you make your living. You want the best tool that you can afford, because a good tool that is stable and does not break on you is a wonderful thing. A lot of times cheap tools tend to break, and when they break, especially in a shop environment, you can get injured. You know, let's say that you have like a big breaker bar and you're pulling back on it, and if that thing snaps, that, my friends, will completely ruin your day, and it could send you to the hospital, and that's never a good thing. Now you notice that I'm putting a little bit of oil on here because I want to try to maintain this in as good a shape as possible to keep it from rusting. So generally, whenever I clean something, I also try to preserve it. And the more that you maintain this sort of thing and keep everything clean, the better off you are. It's just easier to keep things clean and functioning the way that they should. And just taking a few minutes, you know, like we're doing now, doesn't hurt anything. Slight investment of your time, but it sure beats paying for some kind of a tool later. So anyway, that is a very quick update. I know that as far as videos go, this tends to be a long one, because how long have I gone here? Man, this video has been a half an hour. So if you've stayed with me this long, more power to you. But this is just part of the annual, let's get everything put back where it belongs so we don't have a dirty workbench and everything else. So that's a look into some of the stuff that I do. And thanks for watching. Everybody, appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, have a good one and be safe out there.